Hey everybody, I'm Amy Hughes and welcome back to my kitchen on the beautiful Isle of Hope near Savannah, Georgia. Well, today I'm going to show you a recipe for the most delicious banana cupcake you will ever put in your mouth. I'm serious, this is so good that you're going to get marriage proposals because of this cupcake. Now essentially I've been making the same recipe since 1978, but I've updated it to include Philadelphia cream cheese instead of Crisco. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with Crisco. I can't imagine making fried chicken or a flaky pie crust without Crisco. However, I just really don't want it in my cupcake, and the Philadelphia cream cheese makes such a delicious cupcake that, you know, it's so much better this way. Plus, this cupcake packs a double Philadelphia cream cheese punch in that we use the flavored honey nut Philadelphia cream cheese as the base for the icing. And this is so good. So let's get started. Well, I have been waiting all week for these bananas to get to just the right stage of ripeness, and here they are. They've got these little brown flecks in there. That means they'll be nice and delicious. So I'm going to tell you a story while we make this cupcake of where this recipe came from originally. It goes back to 1978, as I said, when I was a Girl Scout in the State Cake Bake-Off. And I made this cake, the novelty banana cake it was called. And I made it and I won the Troop Cake Bake, and I won the Area Cake Bake, and I won the Region Cake Bake, and that meant that I won a trip, all expenses paid, to Albany, Georgia to bake my cake at the State Cake Bake-Off. I mean, it was just like the Betty Crocker Bake-Off. They had a ring of ovens and you were on stage in front of all these people. They even had Miss Georgia there. It was a big deal. So we're smushing up our bananas here. We need about a cup of them. So that's about 3 large ripe bananas. Okay, that's good. So let's go on over and work on our batter. Well, this recipe is really simple. First, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Philadelphia cream cheese. We're only going to use a half a cup, which is about a half of a 8-ounce packet. And we're going to cream that for a few minutes till it's nice and fluffy. And then we're going to pour in 1½ cups of sugar.
Add your sugar to the creamed butter and Philly a ½ cup at a time, and then mix until it's nice and pale and fluffy. Then add in 3 eggs one at a time and mix for about a minute after each addition.
Now we're going to whisk up our dry ingredients. We're going to take 2 cups of flour. You can just use regular flour. It doesn't have to be cake flour or anything like that. So 2 cups of flour. And we're going to take a teaspoon of salt, which, trust me, that really tastes good in there. And then we're going to take 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And we're going to whisk this up together. Now we're going to take a ½ teaspoon of baking soda, and we're going to dissolve that in a ½ cup of buttermilk. Now, buttermilk is one of the secrets to keeping this recipe so moist. The combination of the buttermilk and the smushed bananas, that really makes it moist. All right, so here we go. We've got our ½ teaspoon of, and then we've got our 1 teaspoon of Mexican vanilla. I love Mexican vanilla. It makes it taste so good. Now we're going to add our smushed up bananas to our batter, and then we're going to add our flour, and then we're going to add our milk, and we're going to do that in 2 parts. So we'll add half the flour, then half the milk, then half the flour, then the rest of the milk. Well, one of the nice additions to this cupcake recipe is that I've added some walnuts because I think bananas and walnuts taste so good together. So we're going to stir in about a cup of nicely chopped walnuts into our batter. And it really makes these cupcakes special. So we're filling our muffin cups about 2/3 full of batter here. Now back to the story about the cake bake. So I was up there on stage and I was mixing my bananas, smushing them up and sifting my flour, and I started running out of room, so I started moving stuff down to the floor beside me. And then I started getting a little nervous, and I looked around and everybody else was already done. They were like already cleaning up, and I hadn't even started mixing my cake yet. So I started throwing everything together and put it in the oven, put the cake in the oven, and then started cleaning up. And would you believe I found the bowl of flour on the floor? I forgot to put the flour in the cake. So my mom, she was out there in the audience, and she saw me go white as a sheet. And so she ran up there on stage and she jerked that cake out of the oven, and by this time it already had like a thin skin on the top of it. It had been in there for long enough. And so she dumped it back in the mixer, and she told me to mix that cake and finish it and put it back in the oven and to see it through to the end. And that's what I did. Well, speaking of the end, we're going to put these cupcakes in the oven for about 20 minutes on a 350-degree setting until a cake tester comes out clean. So our icing is very simple and it's delicious. So we're going to take 2 tubs of Philadelphia cream cheese, the honey nut flavor, and we're going to put that into our mixer. And then we're going to add 6 tablespoons of butter. Now I like to use salted butter. So we'll put that in there.
Add 2 teaspoons of Mexican vanilla to your creamed butter and Philly.
And then we're going to follow that up with 5 cups of powdered sugar. We're going to add it 1 cup at a time, and we're going to mix for about 2 minutes after each addition. And that's it. That's our delicious frosting. The easiest way to ice these cupcakes is to put your icing into a disposable pastry bag, and I like to fit mine with a large star tip, and then just swirl it on there. So simple. You know, I wanted to quit that cake bake. I really did. I wanted to just go home. But my mom made me go back and ice that cake that afternoon and then go to the awards ceremony that evening as well. And the whole time I kept sitting out there in the audience thinking, maybe I invented a new way to make a cake. I guess it's really kind of funny that now we have flourless chocolate cakes out there, flourless torts. So there's our icing. It looks delicious and it has such a nice cream cheese flavor. Now for garnishes, we've got some walnuts. You could put a whole walnut on there like that. Or you could put some of these glazed walnuts, or like sugar glazed walnuts, and put that on there. That tastes really nice too, like a little praline. Or we've got this wonderful bourbon vanilla sugar, which is really nice, and you can sprinkle a little bit of that on there too, and that looks beautiful and gives it a beautiful aroma too. So here we have our banana walnut honey cupcake, and I dedicate this recipe to my mother, Diane Haywood, who is the best baker that I know, and who taught me the love of baking from a very early age, and who also taught me to see things through to the end and to dream big. Just like this, Real Women of Philadelphia. So I hope you enjoy this recipe, and we'll see you girls back next time. The cream cheese makes it.